And we're going to go back to the topic, of course, that we are having today. I'm not here to just play music. I'm going to do some, proper soul digging stuff as well. So let's have a look at hidden motives again. Because God looks to the heart. But what is really in our hearts? Who knows? Let's read Jeremiah 17:10. But I, the Lord, search all hearts and examine secret motives. I give all people their due rewards, what their actions deserve. So again, we see that God is very interested in what we are doing and where our hearts are. And so I'm going to go into now some of the reasons why we may be doing things. And I'm going to make some examples. And I'm not doing this to point out that somebody out there is doing something bad. I'm doing this because this is something every one of us do. It's not a question of if we have these bad stuff in us. It's a question of how much do we allow to be there, to be active. Because it's all there in the seed, and it's all there through the influence of the enemy that we have. So we all have this. This is a part of life on earth in an imperfect world where we are flawed beings. And so that's part of my message. We just have to embrace that we are imperfect. And it's okay. I've never come across a perfect Christian. And so we all know that the day that we give our lives to Christ, we're not perfect. And some people say that, oh, if you love Christ and if you've given yourself to Him, then you're not sinning any longer. And it's like, what? Did you suddenly become a perfect person that is without sin whatsoever, to be compared with God in a manifestation on earth? We do our best, and when the more we give to God, the less we desire to sin and the less we will sin. But this is a gradual thing. I mean, you can sin in an outer big act, but you can also sin with a tiny little desire, tiny little thought that you encourage and like. And so we see that there's shades and grades of sin. Yes, all sin is the same, but still, there are big outer sins that are rough and, I don't know, like more physical and immature. And then you get smaller and smaller and smaller and more invisible, but it's still there. It's the seed of the same thing. And to say that we are rid of all of this is a little bit too much for me because, well, I can tell you right away, I'm not rid of all of that. And I'm probably a person that is not going around sinning that much, but I am aware of so much dirt in myself. And because of that, I know that I'm not that different than other people. We all have it. So, I'm just saying this before we dig into it, because the point of this is not shame and blame and, to go into some kind of bad state and feeling bad about oneself, because that's actually a sin as well. To put oneself down, to feel shame and guilt and all that. We're not supposed to do that. We're just supposed to do our best, like toddlers learning to walk, and we fall and we mess up and we get up again and we do better next time, and it is actually needed to do errors in order to learn. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the topic of healing, and I have an example here of one person going out to heal, and we are going to look at the possible reasons for why he is actually doing that. Because healing and attempting to heal somebody in the name of Christ is not necessarily just a good thing. Some people go out on the street or are in meetings and stuff like that and pray for others to get healed because they feel it's their duty. They're supposed to do that. It says in the Bible you're supposed to do it, so then they go and do it, and they do it out of duty, not because they want to do it, not because they love Christ, not because they love the person even, but it's just what they've been told they have to do if they're going to be a good boy or a good girl. And that is not really a very good reason, is it? Then we have another one. Some may go out and want to heal others because they follow others' expectations. And it's kind of like the same as the duty, but it can also be like pressure from parents or peers, or it's just this culture where you have to do that, otherwise you will not have the social acceptance in the group. And that's not a good reason either. You're not doing it for God. And then we have people that go out to heal in order to gain favor. If I heal you, then perhaps you will become a part of my church. Perhaps you will give me money. Perhaps you will give me other kinds of favor because you trust me and set me high, like an authority. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the hidden. And even if it's just 5%, it is valuable to be aware of it. Because, as I mentioned before, we do not have just one reason or one intention behind our acts. There's many. There's plenty of them. And it's mixed together, both the good and the bad. And that's what God says, that He weighs the motives. He's weighing them back and forth. Which one is the most? Is it the gaining favor? Or is it, the desire to impress others and elevate oneself and look what I did? I healed somebody. I'm the spiritual Christian hero. Ooh, There's different levels. And so being the hero is one of them. Unfortunately, we all want to be the hero, but we want to do it so that it's obvious that God is the hero. And sometimes that is not obvious. Sometimes it is more about the person. And I'm not judging here now. I'm not telling that this person is doing this or anything. I'm not putting a label on anyone. I'm just mentioning some of the things that are going on inside of us, and only God knows truly what is going on inside of me and you and everyone else. So this is not to be put up as something to point fingers, not at all. The only one we're going to be pointing at is ourselves, to investigate what's inside of me. And if I go out and I heal people, then surely I would feel good about myself. I would feel that, wow, now God is happy with me, and I have this great confirmation that I'm doing well and I'm close to God and we are buddies, and everything's fine. And people love me. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things as long as the intent is to glorify God and to do His will. But if the main intent is seeking that confirmation to feel good about yourself, well, then that's a little bit off target. And then we have the other one that is to look good in the eyes of others. That's kind of like been covered already. But here's another one that is a little bit interesting, and that is to pay for guilt or other sins. Like if a person has done something terribly bad and they're still doing it, you know, like every weekend they are up into pornography on the web and, you know, just losing themselves in that. And because they have so bad consciousness about that, or perhaps they're doing something completely different, perhaps they are bullying somebody, or, you know, just doing something they know is bad. And so to kind of like buy their way into God's favor, they're doing this thing to, you know, please Him. Like, okay, I can continue with this sin as long as I go out and heal somebody every week. Then, you know, it will even out and I will get His favor anyway, you know. And it's not because it's a bad person, but if you're stuck in something that you know is bad and you have really bad conscience, then it's a natural trap to go in, to try to, you know, cover it up by doing something else that is very, very good. But of course we have to go to the core and sort it out and start with that and do our best and not lie to ourselves in any kind of way, because God is not gonna be mocked. We can't fool Him. And we all have bad sides, so just let it be what it is. And then we have another one, and that is to gain trust, and through that trust gain power. We've kind of like looked at that earlier, and I'm also going to touch upon spiritual pride, because we have this thing going on in denominations where you get spiritual pride. People, they start elevating or like evaluating each other based on your performance, your outer performance. And so if you speak in tongues, then you are surely close to God. But if you don't do it, then, oh, I'm not really sure if you're going to come to heaven, you know. Maybe you haven't forgiven, maybe you really haven't received Christ, you know. You have all these labels and stuff going on, and so healing somebody or doing something may be out of that kind of religious pride. And that's not for God. It has nothing to do with Him, really. It's a play that is going on between humans, and it's not glorifying Him. And then we have the people that go out to heal as if it is a competition, because they want to be just as good or even better than their peers and their brothers and their sisters. And so, wow, I healed 20 people today. Woo! I'm the man, you know. And I don't think that God is very impressed by that, to be honest. I mean, yes, if the driving force was to bring people to the kingdom and burning love, to save souls in His name and plunder the earth of all the shit that the enemy has placed here, and, you know, take back what belongs to the children of God and do good in that way, well, sure, it's good. But if it is the ego that is getting pleasure out of healing people, then that's not a very holy, sanctified thing to do. It's not an intent behind it that is really for God. And you know, some people heal to get famous, some people heal to get rich, and some people heal to get laid. It's truth, and it's not very pretty. And so all of these things, and I'm sure tons of other reasons, can be the hidden motivation for things that we do. And when we look at it and question it, just even allow the thought that just because I do something that is described in the Bible or very spiritual or Christian, or, you know, it looks good, that doesn't mean that I am doing it in a way that is pleasing in God's eyes. And so that is the kind of discussion that we need to have with ourselves, continuously soul searching, asking ourselves, why am I doing this? And one way of checking this is like, if you could heal somebody and nobody knew, nobody understood that it was you that did anything at all, or even perhaps you did it and people hated you for it because something happened and it got twisted and it got into some kind of misunderstanding and you became the bad guy. If you then, and even if you had to pay to do it, like if it cost you something, whether it's emotional, financial, mental, whatever level, if it had to cost you something, you had to walk a mile to do it, would you do it? That's one way of testing it, but this is really complicated and I don't have a simple solution for how to, know the difference. But by us seeking God and seeking answers to these things, we will find the answers. And so we can trust Him for that. Now, if somebody is starting a ministry, let's say, what reasons could be behind it? Well, surely it's supposed to be to help others and bring them closer to God, give glory to God, to bring them to salvation, things like that. That should, of course, be the cause, the main cause, the core of the ministry. And perhaps it is, but then mixed in with that, we may get all kinds of ugly stuff going on. And so I'm gonna just plow through some of that as well, and it's not a pretty ride, all of it. So some may start a ministry, and again, I'm just gonna repeat this. I'm talking about my own stuff. I'm talking about stuff that is with all of us. This is human dirt, stuff we don't want, but it's here, and we just put it on the plate and look at it because it's here. So if I start a ministry and my intent is to prove my value, I need people to like me, and by people liking me and putting me up in some kind of way, I get a kick. Then that's not the right reason to start a ministry, and it's not glorifying God, and we do that kind of stuff. So if I am depressed and really feeling low because I don't have thousands of listeners, then I gotta ask myself then, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing it for God? Or am I doing it to get, stuff from other people, like acknowledgement and approval and increased self-esteem, increased social value, get attention? That would be a terrible reason for starting a ministry. And I'm sure somebody's gonna accuse me of it, and fine, you can't go ahead, do that. I'm minding my own business. I know, I like digging in the dirt. I've already told you that. So you dig in your dirt, I dig in mine. But, some people, they start a ministry out of pride. They want to be a big hotshot. Or perhaps they want to prove that somebody else is wrong. They want revenge even against people that wronged them in the past, and now it's my turn to be on the podium and say what I mean and what God surely agrees with, because that's how I see it. And of course, there's people starting a ministry to get rich, to get famous, and again, to get laid. These are one of the most common things that are there, and it's not the reason they start originally, but we see so often that that's what, gets slowly into it, and it's mingled in, and they get caught up in the fame and the power and the control and the influence they have on people, and they like it. And I pray I will never get in that position. But none of us are secure. We just have to continue to look at ourselves and, use the scrutiny we have and be careful. Stay humble. So, some people start a ministry just to see miracles. And they want the gifts, all the joy, all the pretty stuff and the glitter, the gold and the silver. But they don't really want to do their job, the dirty job. They don't want to be servants. And they're not really interested in the person giving the gifts. It's all about the gifts and the miracles. It's me, what is pleasing me, because I like miracles and exciting stuff. But what happened to the sacrifice? What happened to giving all that you have, even though it hurts? And then, of course, we have some people that start a ministry just because it's a family tradition and they're supposed to. Yep, doesn't mean that it's wrong to start a ministry just because it's in the family, but it doesn't mean that it's a valid reason for God either. So, in the end, what it boils down to is, are you doing it for God, or are you doing it for some other kind of reason? Are you really dedicating your life and your activities to Him? Or do you allow these other hidden motives to sneak in and be a part of the reason why you are doing it? And this is not a one-time thing. This is something we have to look at all the time. Because even if I started out really good, it can change. We are living beings and we change. In one moment I am completely for God and I'm clean. But then 3 years later, 5 years later, I just found myself in this routine situation, and what was once fire and me discerning and yearning for God and being on fire for Him can be twisted into some kind of routine where the fire is gone and the bills are piling up and the motives start to become something that it was not meant to be. And so we all have this, and we all just have to be humble about it and weed out as much as we can. So the question is, as I mentioned, in our temple, in the house of God that we have in ourselves, in our vehicle, our body, our consciousness, what is in our rooms? Are we cleaning them? Are they filled with light, or are they filled with darkness? Is it Christ consciousness that is operating, or is it not? And if it's not, then what is it? And so I'm going to end now with a short prayer. But before that, I just want to give thanks to Kevin MacLeod. He's the one that makes the music that we're playing, and it's free licensed music. You can find it at incompetech.com. And I also want to say that next time I will be talking about active ignorance. And that is also a hot and very relevant topic. It's interesting. And it's something that we all have to think about. And so I say, dear Father, thank you for bringing light into all of our rooms, into all of our levels of consciousness, every cell, every organ, every system, every level of consciousness there is. And thank you, Lord, for aligning all these levels with your will and your perfect image. You know that we are not able to sense it all and carry it all in our visible sight, but you are. And we say that we give it all to you. All that we are able to be in touch with and give to you, we do it now. And the things that we have no idea of, we thank you, Lord, that you bring it up in the light and bring it to our awareness and help us heal, help us change, help us wake up, and help us see, so that we can put a fire of light into as many rooms as possible in a gentle and effective way, without feeling guilt or shame, but just the joy of changing something that was dark with something that is full of joy and light. Give us the joy and the ability to rejoice every time we find something bad, because we know it's the beginning of getting something so much better, a blessing, a rewarding gift that is going to be flowing into us like a living river, but also that will be flowing out of us to impact and influence and set free everyone that we are in contact with. For what we heal on our inside and what we restore inside of us, well, that can also be restored in others. But we cannot trigger that in others until we ourselves are healed. So I dedicate all of this to you, God. You're the Lord, you're the boss, and you see all of these rooms, and you have a plan for how we can have our spring cleaning or our summer cleaning and our autumn cleaning, and get as far as we can and fill it with your light, so that we can be shining lights in a world of darkness and be a beacon of love where it's so desperately needed. Thank you for tuning in to Spirit Talk this time. I will be back next Saturday. That is 10 a.m. in US Pacific time, which means 1 p.m. in Florida, 18 o'clock in London, UK, and 7 o'clock in the evening, Central Europe. And next time, I will be digging into the topic of active ignorance. And that is perhaps something that you haven't been thinking about lately, but it is a very relevant and hot topic, and I do believe it's going to be interesting. So stay tuned for that. I also want to give thanks to Kevin MacLeod. He's the one that makes all the great music that we're playing here, and it's free licensed music, so you can get it at incompetech.com. And I just want to say thanks, Kevin. We are grateful. Also, I want to announce that we finally have our email in order, and we have a contact form that is fully functioning on our webpage. So now it's a lot easier to send in your dreams, questions, and suggestions at freelegions.com. And we are in the process of setting up a cool feature so that the shows can be more interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to have the chat going on straight from Facebook or the webpage. So parts of that is in place and is going to be used for some of the future shows. But I will tell you more about all that when we get to that point. Until then, I just want to wish you a blessed week. I love you. God loves you 1,000 times more. Take care.